All right, let's jump right in. You've handed us this pretty substantial stack of sources and notes, all focused on one really intricate topic, the long-running tensions and this shadow war between Iran and Israel.
That's right.
So our mission for this deep dive is basically to unpack that, pull out the key facts from these materials you gave us, get the history straight, understand where things stand now, and really pinpoint the major risks involved.
Yeah, it's a dynamic that gets talked about a lot, but the nuances, the shadow part, often get missed.
Exactly. And the first thing these sources seem to stress is that this isn't, a conventional war footing.
No, not at all. The term shadow war comes up again and again in the material. It's characterized by covert ops, cyber warfare, assassinations, and crucially, the use of proxy forces.
Right. It lets them sort of fight without actually declaring war on each other directly.
Precisely. It's about plausible deniability, projecting force, inflicting damage, but always trying to stay below that threshold.
So, okay, backing up a bit. How did this whole thing start? What did the sources say about the origins?
Well, the watershed moment, according to everything here, is Iran's 1979 Islamic Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
That fundamentally shifted the relationship.
How so?
The post-revolutionary government adopted an ideology fundamentally opposed to Israel's very existence. And from Israel's perspective, Iran's nuclear ambitions and its growing network of regional proxies became and remain existential threats.
That fundamental opposition sets the stage.
It really does. It's the bedrock of the conflict described.
And you mentioned proxies. The sources really emphasize that, especially in Hezbollah and Lebanon, figures cited for their arsenal are over 150,000 rockets.
Yeah, that number is staggering. And the sources explain why it's so significant. It gives Iran this massive deterrent force right on Israel's border.
So they can threaten or attack without Tehran firing the actual shot.
Exactly. It's leverage. Huge leverage. And it's not just Hezbollah. The sources also detail Iran's support for Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza, funding, weapons, and even the Houthi attacks in the Red Sea fit this pattern, projecting power from others.
Okay, so beyond the proxies, there's this other layer, the direct covert actions. Let's unpack that side, Israel's moves.
Right. The sources describe very targeted Israeli operations, things like alleged assassinations of Iranian nuclear scientists, sabotage of facilities. Stuxnet is mentioned specifically.
The cyber attack back in 2010, yeah.
That's the one. And also the consistent Israeli airstrikes inside Syria. The stated goal there, according to the sources, is preventing advanced weapons transfers, particularly to Hezbollah, disrupting supply lines.
And Iran's response? It's not always tit for tat in the shadows, is it?
Not always symmetrical, no, but they do retaliate. The big example highlighted in the material is that drone and missile barrage in April 2024. Over 300 projectiles. That was a major direct response.
Although, importantly, the sources note most of those were intercepted.
Correct. The interception rate was very high, which is itself a significant detail.
Okay, this leads us to maybe the most dangerous element the sources cover, the nuclear issue. Iran enriching uranium up to 60% purity. That's getting close.
It is uncomfortably close to weapons grade, as the sources point out. And Israel's position, repeatedly stated and noted here, is absolutely clear. They will not allow Iran to obtain nuclear weapons. Full stop.
This feels like the highest stakes part of the whole dynamic.
Without a doubt, the sources connect this directly to suspected Israeli actions, like sabotage attacks and nuclear sites. It shows how actively Israel is working against the program, viewing it as that ultimate red line.
So, bringing it to the very recent past, the sources zoom in on that April 2024 period, setting it against the backdrop of the October 7th attacks. Israel hits Iran's consulate in Damascus.
Killing senior commanders, yes. That was the trigger for the big Iranian retaliation.
And then Israel responds again, but near Isfahan, what's the significance there?
It seems to be about signaling. The sources suggest the location near Isfahan, close to nuclear facilities but causing limited damage, was Israel demonstrating its reach, its capability to hit sensitive targets without causing mass casualties.
A deliberate message.
A very deliberate, though risky, message. It shows both sides, even in direct confrontation, were trying to manage escalation, to communicate red lines and capabilities without tipping into full war.
So if we pull all this evidence from the sources together, where does that leave us? What's the current status?
The main thread running through the analysis is that despite these really sharp escalations, neither side actually seems to want a full-scale conventional war. The shadow war continues.
They pull back from the brink.
They seem to, yes.
Yeah.
And the U.S. role is noted, too, providing defensive support to Israel, but also pushing hard diplomatically for de-escalation.
And the core risks moving forward, the sources are quite clear on these, aren't they?
Very clear. Two stand out. First, the risk of miscalculation. Someone misreads a signal and action goes further than intended,
Yeah.
and things spiral out of control despite the underlying desire to avoid war.
A mistake triggers the unwanted war.
Exactly. The second major risk highlighted is tied directly to the nuclear program. The possibility of a preemptive Israeli strike if they believe Iran is about to achieve nuclear breakout, basically getting the bomb. That's seen as perhaps the most volatile flashpoint.
It definitely leaves you thinking. Taking all this from the sources, how stable can a shadow war really be? You've got near-nuclear capabilities, absolute red lines, massive proxy armies like Hezbollah with 150,000 rockets aimed across a border.
It feels inherently unstable, doesn't it?
It does. So the question maybe to mull over is, what kind of event, what specific trigger, maybe even an accident, could finally shatter this carefully managed, dangerous shadow box and turn it into open, direct conflict? Something for the concept.
אנחנו צריכים את זה סטרילי, לזוז.